college graduates should not have to live out their 20s in their childhood bedrooms, staring up at fading Obama posters and wondering when they can move out and get going with life.
Hey, I don't care your politics. That was a good line here. Fair is fair. Paul Ryan certainly fired up the base last night, even though his speech, almost by every fact-check organization would agree, was beset by errors, some calling them powerful, the address, passionate, even other supporters say dazzling. He talked about his upbringing, and he went directly after the president for what he called a lack of leadership. He even went on the offense when it came to Medicare, potentially risky move, but I would say strategically borderline brilliant. Now, the question is, will his speech overshadow Mitt Romney tonight, and how will it set the agenda for the Democrats at their convention week? But before we get to all of that, let's bring in our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman, who, as he has all week, joins us live from Tampa with more. Andrew?
Well, Rich, this is going to come as a shocker to you, but how Congressman Ryan's speech last night played depends on what side of the partisan divide you're on. We spoke earlier today with Staten Island Republican Congressman Michael Grimm, and then we also spoke with Florida Democratic Congresswoman and the chairwoman of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, and you'll never believe it, but they had different opinions on how Paul Ryan did last night.
I think he delivered. You know, that's the bottom line, is he got the job done. Obviously, I'm going to be a little biased because I've gotten to know him pretty well over the last year and a half. And I don't care if you're a Democrat, an independent, or a Republican. The more you get to know this guy, the more you're going to like him. His sincerity just is so apparent. He's so genuine. He's legitimately choked up when he speaks about his mom being his role model. I think that's wonderful. It reminds me of my relationship with my dad, and my dad being, you know, my hero my entire life. But he came at the president. It had to be done. But what I like is it wasn't with vitriol. It wasn't with this rancor that we're seeing in the press so much. It was respectful, but it was hard-hitting. And he brought the issues and the failures to the forefront. And that's what this is about. It's about the economy. It's about getting people back to work. It's also about believing in America and believing who we are as Americans, and that our core values really don't need to be changed. They need to be revitalized. And so I think he hit on all the points that he needed to hit on.
Well, I thought it was really unfortunate that Paul Ryan really made it a priority to lie about the president's record, and that he spent a great deal of time simply spewing falsehoods, suggesting that the plant in Janesville, the auto plant in Janesville, closed because of President Obama when it closed under President Bush and was already slated to close. Talking about his view that we should make hard decisions, and those hard decisions that they're proposing would actually shred the health care safety net for seniors by turning Medicare into a voucher system, and lying and saying that their policies wouldn't affect seniors now when they would, by repealing Obamacare and opening the donut hole and increasing prescription drug costs, repealing preventative care that's available for seniors so we can keep them healthy.
One more note to add to those comments: the view from inside the arena last night as Congressman Ryan gave his speech. This was not the most ebullient, most raucous crowd you've ever heard. There was actually quite a bit of silence and some sitting on the hands during much of Paul Ryan's speech last night. It was really only on a few specific policy areas, and then during Congressman Ryan's attacks on President Obama, that the crowd really seemed at its most motivated. Of course, it did ramp up very nicely towards the end. We have seen in the past other vice presidential acceptance speeches at these conventions where you've had a much bigger crowd response. Don't know how that plays into how people interpret Paul Ryan's speech last night, Rich, but thought I'd throw that inside the arena insight back to you in the studio.
Andrew, give an idea a little bit. We're going to be talking more about Paul Ryan here, but is there a sense that he's not only the rising star in the party, but it's almost become his party here leading up to tonight? Has there been any concerns that Mitt Romney's job, as difficult as it was, is almost harder because he might be overshadowed by a guy whose policies seem more in tune with the majority of the people in the room behind you?
You know, the sense that I've gotten from the delegates and the other people here that I've talked to is that it doesn't seem like it would be a negative for Mitt Romney, that any positive that Paul Ryan can add, whether he overshadows Romney or not, is simply a net positive to the ticket. So when dealing with November, I think Romney will take it, whether he's eclipsed by Paul Ryan or not. Looking ahead to the future, the path for Paul Ryan isn't exactly wide open if you're looking at 2016 or 2020. There are other names that have done particularly well. Chris Christie's certainly not, his stock hasn't dropped too much as a result of his speech on Tuesday night. And so it's unclear as to whether it's Paul Ryan's party. It certainly is, at least in this election cycle, on economic policy. As you know, he was the wizard of the budget even before he was named to the ticket. I think this is only going to enhance his stature, assuming his performance the rest of the way coincides with that and enhances that as well, Rich.
And we're going to be talking about what Ryan said in a minute, but in a little bit later we'll also be talking, as we get closer to prime time here, the man of the hour, Mitt Romney, what he will say. There are other speakers here, and most notably we're going to hear from Marco Rubio, long rumored obviously with his Florida ties there to potentially be the running mate. Obviously that didn't work out. We're also hearing from Jeb Bush, another Floridian who was pretty critical, and we'll get into that also later in the program, of his party. And we'll hear from Clint Eastwood. Any idea where they're trying to go here? I mean, you have people not necessarily all on the same page as to where they want to see the party go. What are they trying to accomplish tonight?
Well, I think they're going to try to rally everybody and stoke the anger against President Obama, remind people just how bad they think the country is doing right now. The one thing they're not going to do is look back. I would be very surprised if we heard from Jeb Bush really any mentions of his brother at all. So I think you're going to hear a lot of focus on economic policy. You're going to hear a lot of stories of small business people who feel like they've been constrained by Obama's economic policies. And generally, I think tonight is the night I think you're going to see a lot more bashing of the White House than we've seen even in previous nights from other big-name speakers, Rich.
All right, Andrew, thank you. We'll be checking back with you shortly as we're going to be talking to other big-name Republicans. Dominic, we talked about Ryan, and we're going to get into with more detail for those who didn't see the speech, some of the elements here that people are still talking about today. The math breakdown here, there's so few people that haven't made up their mind that are on the fence. But when you break down the demos, I know it comes down to turnout, but if all they got is, we don't like the guy in the White House, but it's largely white male, that's the only base that they can draw from, you got to widen it a little bit, don't you, if you're going to win in November, if you're the Republicans? Is there a constituency that they got to appeal to tonight to say, give me a second look here, consider me here, to get that magic number when it comes to the electoral votes on that Tuesday in November?
Excellent question. What they are trying to do, and we'll see this play out tonight with the senator from Florida, is they know they're not going to win the Latino vote. Let's face it. They're not going to do as good as Governor and former President Bush did. They have set their goal to do a little better than John McCain did. But they are hoping to pull, Richard, a little bit of the Latino vote. A couple percentage points. They are hoping, meaning the Romney folks, they are hoping to close the gender gap. So you're right.
Maybe just maybe squeak out of Florida, one of those border states
right
now.
And it's funny you mentioned Florida. You know, there's been much talk about no Republican has ever won the White House without Ohio. But with Ryan on the ticket, what they are hoping is that they are trying to do the math where electorally, where even if they lose Ohio, they seem to feel, yes, that they put Wisconsin in play and that may be able enough to put them over the top.
Okay, and a reminder, everybody, we are asking right now our question that we're going to be getting to some of your answers on in terms of what you really want to hear when it comes to Mitt Romney's address here tonight. And then people say, hey, there's the personality. Let's humanize this guy. Or tell me what you're going to do if you get my vote for the next 4 years. And while I can certainly try and do both, sometimes it's tough. If you had to pick one over the other, what's the most important messaging you want to hear? We'll get to some of those responses. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get to that Ryan address because I got to tell you, I gave it high marks. I said to Dominic, I go either 8 or 9 on a scale of 10, but I can't remember a speech so filled with either half-truths or some outright lies in it. We're going to get into what they are, and I'll also ask, frankly, if it's really going to matter between now and Election Day. Stay with us.